what I've grown to learn is there's my overall attachment style at my healthiest, and then there's my overall attachment style at my unhealthiest.
We are back again with another episode from Our Lenses. I am Masitseho, and I'm here with...
Hello, everyone. It's Meketsi here. Lovely to have you. I think I introduced myself as Meketsi. It's fine. It's either Meketsi or MK, whichever one is easier for you. Yeah, nice to be back again for our third episode. This is actually going great.
Yeah. So yeah, as you remember, I think we keep saying that it is, we're here to address some topical subjects with you guys. Try and, we'll see how educational we can be, but I think it's just important just to, on a huge level, be light-hearted about some of the things that we're learning, because we are going through this life thing, which is a lot. And, some conversations we are or we aren't having with people around us. So something I've been thinking about this week, MK, is attachment. Maybe high level, just to go into a little bit of the attachment styles. Obviously, with attachment, it is something that we learn from babies. So it is, as a parent, how do I attach to my child? And how does then my child learn how to attach to other people around them? How do they kind of make sense of the world around them? So there is 4 attachment styles. The first one being secure. So obviously, as a baby, I feel secure in whatever environment I'm in because my mother is there, my father is there, whoever the caregiver is. And this allows me sort of quite a healthy interaction with the world. And it's easy for me to either accept other people or to accept being alone. Then we have the less healthier sort of attachment styles. So anxious. So obviously, I think it's quite self-explanatory. It's sometimes a bit hard for me to be in relationships with other people. I kind of struggle with how do I interact with them. I'm worried if this person is still going to be there for me, especially sort of in relationships, right? I go into a relationship and I'm always worried, is this person here? Do they love me? Are they going to be here forever? So is it because, your parent wasn't there for you as much as they should have been? Is it that they weren't available? Whatever the case may be. And then I then learn how to interact with the world based on that. Then we have dismissive avoidant. And I think obviously the most important word in there is avoidance. So do I sort of avoid having close emotional connections because I didn't really learn how to do that? It's important for me to feel independent. So I kind of want to do things on my own, maybe because I've had to learn to do that from a young age, how to be independent. And then we have the fearful and avoidant attachment style. So I want emotional close relationship, but I find it difficult to trust completely. So it's almost that fear that's constantly negating how I interact with other people. Will I be hurt if I allow myself to become too close to people? So I think the reason I wanted to just high level go through those is it's important to understand kind of what your attachment style is, right? But also we have different attachment styles depending on the relationship we have with people. Sometimes my attachment style with people is different to how it is at work. So all of those things, it's just, I know with the last episode we did, one of the things you did is with journaling. That I think is also an important thing because it really helps you understand in terms of, who am I in this big bad world?
Yeah.
So I just thought it was just important just to, I don't know if you want to add anything sort of to the attachment styles that might make it easier for people to sort of understand.
So it's beautiful because I think we don't give enough thought or give enough credit to how important understanding your attachment style is. I think for me, high level, understanding what attachment style means is basically how do I relate to this situation that I'm in? So it's always been important for me because, especially when I consider certain relationships, what I've grown to learn is there's my overall attachment style at my healthiest, and then there's my overall attachment style at my unhealthiest. So I've always understood that we obviously understand that the secure attachment is what you sort of like grow accustomed to in a healthy space, in a healthy relationship, and when you yourself are in a good space with yourself. And then I don't call it this, whatever, but this is what's my trauma attachment style? What's my attachment style when things are sort of like unhealthy and not really supposed to be? So I know mine. I don't know if you know yours. So I'm a dismissive avoidant. So I'm hyper independent when I feel like I'm not safe in a space or feel like I'm not safe in a certain relationship. That's like my thing. And there's a plane flying, but okay. So yeah, those are my two main attachments. I understand how I got there because as a kid, that's just what I was taught. I mean, when you spoke about the dismissive avoidant, I always had to do things by myself. Never really expected much because I just thought that was normal. So I basically just carried that into my adulthood until I learned, oh, actually, wait, it's not supposed to be like that. So for me, it's a true, and I think it's important because it influences everything. So it influences how do you get on with people, how do you sort of like value and treat yourself as well, because we can turn that attachment to ourselves as well. Do you actually deal with your stuff, or do you, well, for me, you avoid your stuff? So yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say with regards to attachment. I just think that it feeds into so much else that we don't understand as well.
100%. Yeah. And as you're saying that, I think the fear aspect comes in being parents, right? Because like you, obviously as a parent, we're trying to do our best, right? And we hope that we are going to have children who are adults one day who are secure, right? But then what does that mean in terms of how we parent? What do we then need to do to ensure that that's how they attach to life? So as you were saying that, I was just like, I hope I'm doing a good job because I'm not sure what kind of attachment style my children are gonna have. But we do, the best that we can. But a lot of it is also learned, right? Because then, like you say, you've also had to learn from a young age how to be a little bit more independent. And that was circumstantial, right? But I think it's also helped you to negate and navigate a lot of the world. So it's understanding what works for me, what doesn't work for me. Am I jumping in between, certain attachment styles depending on not necessarily the mood, but the situation. So for me, I think a big thing is just understanding that it's something or a feeling that bonds you or connects you as a person, maybe to another person or to a thing or to a cause. And it's something it's sometimes hard for us to, it is hard for us to cope if we don't know how we're supposed to attach in that situation or how we're supposed to attach to a person. So that's, I don't know, it's a deep thing. And obviously we then see that it is important for me to attach to certain things differently and the importance and the impact that those certain things that have on me. So, I'm just trying to think. Now I'm talking too much. Yeah.
So just one thing. Do you think we sometimes panic because we assume attachment needs to feel a certain type of way? Or whatever we attach to needs to sort of evoke certain emotions in us constantly. And when there's that one season where it just doesn't do that for you. Think of your job, for instance. You're like, I'm passionate about my job. I'm always going for it, just killing it. And then there's that dry season at work, or maybe it's like a month, two, whatever time period is unbearable for you. And you're like thinking, I don't think this is what I'm meant to do. So do we make the mistake of now thinking, maybe this is not for me, out, gone? Do you think that's maybe something that we do? I don't know. It's an idea. because we certainly do that in relationships. So
Yeah.
if you think maybe if we do that with our cause, the causes that we attach to, the car that starts breaking all the time, you're just like, oh, and it's fine, just want to fix it here and there. You're like, no, this car needs to go. Or
And that's a very valid point that you do say, because obviously at the beginning of the relationship, for example, like the honeymoon stage, like your attachment, I think would be different. Then we start getting into there's real conflict, there's real issues that are coming out. How am I then either learning to conflict resolute, for example, or am I completely just wanting to avoid it? Am I being dismissive, or am I sort of anxious and panicked about how is this conversation going to end out? What do I need to say maybe to ensure that this person is here? So it's that, yeah, it's a very good question that you're asking.
yeah, so that's what I'm thinking. Maybe we just expect it to always feel a certain type of way, and for us, that sort of means like it's okay. Or maybe that season is really showing you that maybe you weren't as securely attached to that thing as you thought that you were. Because I believe secure attachment comes with a lot of things. Is your self-esteem in check? Is your self-confidence where it needs to be? Are you yourself at a healthy space? Because I think if you're healthy, you understand how to remedy it, and you actually take active steps to basically help you get you to where you need to be in everything that you do. Maybe it's understanding that, geez, this job is killing me, but it's fine. It's just one of those seasons. I know this is what I'm meant to do. I know this is what I'm called to do. Let me just do it. When that debit order hits you 6 months later, you're just like, no, I don't think this car is
really what I should be doing.
Forgetting what that car brings you, like the mobility, the freedom, the comfort, because your family got bigger or whatever the case may be.
100%. So I think it's like you're saying, obviously understanding, the healthy and the unhealthy aspect of it, and recognizing the impact or the value that, that you attach to that car, for example, right? Because it's going to get me from point A to B. But now if it's breaking down, you're just like, is it actually worth it? Yeah. So attachment is a big thing. And as we actually saying that, what I actually did want to ask you, something less, not as serious, but are there things, and maybe just to think about, are there things you are attached to? Healthy, unhealthy, I'm not sure, that you sometimes question, should I be attached to these things? So while you think about that, I sometimes have very unhealthy attachment to things, right? Like, example, when I think about excuse me, clothes, right? So maybe I'm attached to, not maybe, on occasion, I have been known to be attached to clothes that I used to wear when I was younger. Like when you're just like, I'm going to lose this weight. I've had 2 children, but I'm sure one day I'm going to fit into that.
Yeah.
Right. And then you start. So I've had to get to the point where I start figuring it out, like, how do I start disengaging from this, because it's actually not healthy for me. Because one, girl, you're not going to lose that much weight anymore. You're not as young as you used to be. But also, like, what is it doing for me to be attached to that? Is it giving me false hope, false expectations? So I've started getting into sort of a routine where every 6 months I'll kind of do sort of an overhaul of my clothes. If it's things I haven't worn within a past couple of months, right? Let go of it. Let somebody else be attached to it. And I know it's a very simplistic sort of thing, but that's all part of attachment. And and MK, I'm sure you also have that pair of socks or that cap that you've had, or the first pair of something that you bought for yourself. And the elasticity of the socks is no longer there, but you're just like, this is the first pair of socks that I bought for myself. So sometimes it's just, and is that something you've learned from home? Like, value things until the last minute? Or is it, you've put in so much effort into that it means more than just the torn up socks? It speaks so much more to how much effort, how much whatever I put into that. Is that a big part of how we attach to things as well?
So before I answer you, I think I'm thinking of my wife, because now she always looks at me as if I'm cooking, because I'm a very sentimental person. I have a rock, like a literal rock, that a person was like, oh, I saw this rock and I thought I just wanted to keep it. I'm that person. So before I share continually, I think
Okay.
when we
So
speak
what
of,
does this erupt elicit for you?
just don't know. I thought it was such a weird thing. I was like, huh. I forgot the explanation that came with it. I think I remember when, and I've got like international currency as well. I have no idea how much it costs. I've got this one friend that when he like flies, always brings me back a note of where he got the thing from. So I think that's very cool. So my attachment is in my sentimentality. I don't know if that makes sense. So I never really have anything that I bought for myself. I'm not really that person. However, if you've bought me something, there's a 95% chance I still have that thing.
Oh.
It is crazy. So that's why when I got married, I was like, nope, not getting rid of that. So, but you don't need this. Listen, no, this is I'm getting rid of this. That I bought, that you can do whatever you want. But this must stay whole board for me. You're not touching that. I'm not, I don't know what to tell you. Yeah, so that's me. So I think it's the stuff that I'm attached to, the stuff is the stuff that I'm sentimental towards. And that's why I love the question that you asked earlier on is I think we need to be able to distinguish between healthy and unhealthy attachments, right? So it's very important to sort of like ask your question, what's my attachment to this doing for me? You know what I mean? If it's like so my attachment to things that my friends have bought me, I don't see that doing anything harmful. It's stuff that I really enjoy. Yes, I've had to get rid of things from like an ex or two, which was very depressing because, yeah. But that makes sense. See, if I was attached to that, then that would be like, okay, my dude, what's up? What's up with you? Yeah. So I think that's why it's important to ask, like, what does this do for you? So the stuff like I've got this that chills, and I got this as like a first birthday present when I started working. When was that? So it will always be with me. It's stuff that I just see where I'm just like, because I'm like, oh, this makes so much sense because it looks like something you would say. So that's what I'm attached to. So that's I don't know if that's irrational, but that's just what I'm attached to. I guess if that makes sense. I don't have like clothing that doesn't work. No, I do. That's a lie. I do.
We'll let that one slide. We know that's a lie. But I think, like you're saying, it needs to make sense to you, right? Because we could all sit here and sort of psychoanalyze you in terms of why that makes sense and all of that. But for me, it's a big part of understanding sort of like, where is this rooted for me?
Yes.
Does it make sense? Does it serve a purpose for me to be attached to that thing?
Yes. Because
right?
you off yourself your attachments, right? Your attachments draw energy from you in as much as you draw energy from it. So I think we need to be careful that just because there's an energy exchange, we shouldn't make the assumption that it's good for you. You can eat a packet of chips and it tastes nice today, but do that for 5 years straight, and it's not gonna end well. So attachment should be this. I can see you fighting there, right? I'm like, it's true, but whatever you want to say,
it is true. Yes, no, I'm not saying anything. I'm gonna leave that one.
Yeah, I had to buy a new Ultra because that I needed to understand that as well. But it's okay. I'm working on it.
Yeah, but I think, like you say, it's the need to understand why we maybe need to change particular attachment styles. So I think obviously as human beings, a big thing is that I navigate or I interact with people in the world based on what I've learned, based on what I see to be normal. But as we're evolving and, growing as people, we need to then understand, does it still make sense for me to be attached to this thing? Does it make sense for me to interact with somebody in a relationship, a friendship in this way? And not just take things on board and just continue to do them because this is, become normal. The normal has to make sense. The normal has to elicit value, a sense of I understand, why I'm doing what I'm doing. So that was just something I was thinking about in terms of attachment. And, and it's not only to, things that people buy for you. It's the values maybe you've learned from people. And I know this is kind of pulling a little bit away from attachment styles, but I just basically wanted to overall get people to think a little bit more about attachment. There's things like, are there particular rituals we start doing or that we've stopped doing because we were doing them at home? Right? Or when you start having your family, do you start having sort of different attachments to activities that are important for you? And what does that elicit, not only for you, but also as a parent? Kind of what are the generational sort of attachment styles and learnings that we're all, this life thing is a lot.
Yeah. I think that's so not obviously to make this a deep thing. I think it's also understanding that, geez, some things we truly need to learn to let go of when they stop making sense in a healthy and productive way. I think the whole goal of life is to grow, and if something hinders that process, we need to really let go of it. I can be very stubborn, so I sometimes wonder, and this is a bit of a deep statement, but I'm not going to elaborate because that's a whole conversation. I sometimes wonder if holding on to, like with attachment now, if we're thinking attachment style. So what I've learned with understanding my own attachment style is it sometimes makes more sense to hold on to my pain than to give you an opportunity to cause me pain, which is toxic stuff. Because you're sort of like, I can deal with what I inflict upon myself. Because I'm in charge of me, sort of. But I can't handle what you inflict upon me because I don't know how to handle you, because I know consciously that I can't change you. So with attachment, there's also that realization of sometimes if it's not progressive, you genuinely need to learn to let that go. So that's what I'm saying. I think we also need to understand, how do you also relate to yourself? Because attachment is all about relating. How do you relate to objects? How do you relate to yourself? How do you relate to others? How do you relate to your own dreams? Like, are you secure in your dreams? Are you going to move forward with it or not? So yeah, attachment is actually quite an interesting topic on the whole.
And I think we could obviously go on forever with this, because I think you've touched on quite a lot of things. And I think one just that you've mentioned now is in terms of your dreams, and I think that's a big one, because you might be secure in who you are and all of that, and maybe that's more of a personal thing when it comes to sort of, you dream about things that you want to do and sometimes procrastinate on getting them done. But I think there's a huge fear aspect. And then maybe that's sort of my attachment style when it comes to sort of propelling myself to where I should be or where I, need to be. So is that also sort of a different sort of a way that I attach to the world or to what?
Yeah.
That is. So yeah, attachment is a huge thing. But I think it's important, to have these conversations, because a lot of times we're kind of internalizing a lot of these things. And, just from having this conversation, I'm starting to think of attachment, differently. There's things that you've brought up to this conversation that I'm like, I never actually thought about that. So I'm hoping these kind of conversations, not only for me, but for other people, will also elicit, these kind of questions and thoughts and conversations moving forward. So yeah, thanks for that. And I think it's definitely something we can absolutely talk more about maybe in another episode, but obviously depending on also what people feel is important to talk more about.
Yeah, absolutely. Also learned a lot. Never really considered how do we attach to things until this conversation. I'm like, actually, wait, that actually does make sense. But wait, is that weird? I'm like, oh, actually, I need to think about that. But yeah, so we'll just take it as we go. But beautiful chat.
Absolutely. So yeah, we look forward to everybody's comments, and give us ideas of more things that you want to talk about. What are things that you're attached to that sometimes makes you feel a bit, am I odd, am I not? But I think also the nice thing about this platform is you have those internal conversations. You're like, oh, this is weird, but then you start hearing other people talk about it. You're like, mara,
I might,
So
man. This is it's not so bad. It's not so bad. That happens a
let's
lot
have
to
more.
me. I'm like,
So let's have more conversations, and we look forward to engaging more with you guys. And thank you so much for your time. Until the next one.
see you guys. Take care.